All right, welcome back. I am reading chapter 27 today of my memoir entitled Rebirth. If you just stumbled upon this video for the first time and you don't know what this is, I encourage you to go back to the beginning. I've been reading chapter by chapter and I'm reading chapter 27 now. So we're quite a ways in, not quite over all the ordeal that is coming, but we're quite a ways in. If you like the story I'm sharing, or you know someone who would like it, please like and share it so that it reaches the people who are meant to hear it. I've been receiving questions. I so appreciate that. And I thought, since I'm getting questions, I might as well do a Q&A. So I'm going to gather up all the questions that I'm receiving, and I'm going to do a Q&A at the end after I've read the last chapter and the epilogue. So if you have questions for me, please write them. Many of the questions will be answered as I continue reading, and some of them might not get answered, so I will address them directly. Thank you again for sending me those and letting me know that you're following along and that you relate or enjoy my story in some form. And if you haven't subscribed, be sure to subscribe so that you know when the next chapter drops. Thank you so much for being here. So I'm reading chapter 27, and it's entitled Time for Healing. The paramedic parked the stretcher against the wall near the bathroom door. I was now in full view of the waiting room, exposed under the dull hospital lighting. My gaze drifted toward the front, where an elderly man sat hunched in a standard metallic chair. His skin was ashen, his shoulders slumped, his eyes vacant, sunken with exhaustion. Something stirred inside me. I needed to lay my hand on him. I imagined walking over, placing a hand on his head and willing the sickness out of his body. But how could I do it without drawing attention? The bathroom was just a few steps to my left. He was 5 or 6 steps to the right. John was holding my IV bag and watching me with quiet vigilance. He might think I was delirious considering the blood loss. I swung my legs over the side of the stretcher, easing myself off, grounding my feet on the cold tile to make sure I was balanced. If my timing was right, maybe I could circle around and brush his shoulder as I passed. But I couldn't figure out how to make the movement seem natural. He was too far. I hesitated. I couldn't do it without rousing suspicion. I hung my head in shame and headed straight to the bathroom. The door was locked. Maybe this would be my chance to escape. John pointed toward another door, further down the hall. He stayed beside me, IV in hand, tethered to me like a shadow, impossible to slip away. The bathroom was surprisingly spacious. 2 sinks, 1 toilet, no stalls. John hesitated, shuffling his 2 feet, then turned his back to give me privacy. But I still needed help to put on the hospital gown. The IV made the whole procedure clumsy. But first, I lowered my pants and squatted over the toilet. Whoa, I gasped. The sharp sound of my own voice cutting through the stillness echoed off the walls. There are huge blood clots in my underwear. It looks like... I stopped mid-sentence. One of them was the size of a fist. In my underwear sat deep, dark, red, gelatinous masses like raw liver. John glanced over his shoulder, assessing the situation. Okay, hold on. Let me get a pan. He handed me the IV bag and stepped out. As soon as the door clicked shut behind him, another clot fell out, splashing against the water. It was the size of an orange. My breath caught, unsure what to do. I reached down and scooped it up to add to the collection. I called out for Mauro, no response. This was insane. John returned a few minutes later, holding a plastic pan, crouched beside me, and with the calm of someone who'd seen all this before, carefully collected the clots from my underwear. Is that all? He asked, after collecting everything. I nodded. How much more could there be? He got up and scrutinized the pan under the harsh fluorescent lights. The blood glistened in heavy clumps. I don't see any placenta attached, he murmured, almost to himself. So it's nothing to worry about. Nothing to worry about? He covered the tray with a towel and set it near the door just as Mauro walked in. A pang of disappointment shot through me. He missed it. He missed seeing just how much came out. He stopped in his tracks, scanned my face, and then something shifted in his expression. What can I do? He asked. Can you rinse my pants? John cut in. You can't wash blood in the sinks. His tone was firm. You should just throw them out. I gasped, shaking my head, then opted for a more pleading tone. They're my favorite pants. He raised an eyebrow. I know, I said quickly, but girls wash blood out of clothes all the time. His body softened slightly. Then with a relenting sigh, he offered Mallow a plastic bag. Take them home, wash them there. John then handed me 4 small white washcloths to clean my legs. I reached for them with relief, but before I could begin, Mallow knelt and gently wiped the blood from my left foot. His touch was soft, almost reverent. I cleaned the rest of my leg, then noticed a streak on my other foot. But before I could wipe it, Mallow again knelt to clean it. His tenderness undid me, a quiet echo of Jesus washing his disciples' feet, not because they were worthy, but as an act of love. The moment felt so humble and pure, it brought the sacred into the room, the unmistakable presence of grace. I then slipped into the hospital gown and we exited the bathroom. My eyes darted to the front of the waiting room. The old man was still there. I felt that jolt of urgency again. I needed to touch him, but I didn't see any way to break away from my entourage. So I turned to Mauro, whispering, touch him for me. I'll heal him through you. Mauro gave me a sideways look and shook his head. I know it sounds strange, but please just do it. He folded his arms, unwilling to entertain the idea. No way, he said. Before I could plead my case, John wheeled me away towards another waiting area, lined with stretchers, partitioned by thin curtains. Not a soul spoke. All I could hear was the occasional shuffle of feet and the low buzz of distant machines. Once we were behind the curtain, I turned to Mauro, beaming. This is actually the birth I wanted. He stared at me, baffled. What? My body convulsed like birth. The gush of blood felt like my water breaking. Then the large blood clots were like giving birth. It was quick and painless, as I imagined birth would be. Not to mention all the support I was glowing, elated at the turn of events. Mauro stared at me like I had lost my mind. I mean it, I said, grinning. There was a thrill dancing in my chest. What an adventure, I said, laughing. Please take a photo of Evelyn and me. I needed to capture a new hospital memory. John returned, his face serious. I'm concerned about the baby being here. It's risky with so many sick patients around. I'd like to move you to the front lobby where there's better airflow. We agreed. As he wheeled my bed through the hall, a woman walked by, did a double take at me holding Evelyn, then asked, did you have the baby on the way here? I laughed at the absurdity of it. Evelyn was clean and fully dressed, but it was also perfectly fitting. It did feel like a new birth, and Evelyn had lost so much weight after the birth, she was close to her original birth weight. Then I saw him again. The elderly man was walking towards the exit doors. I sat up, heart racing. This was it. If I timed it right, I could touch him as he walked past, but he turned the corner, out of sight. I waited, pulse drumming in my ears. Minutes passed. Mauro glanced at me warily, but I ignored him, keeping my focus on the hallway. Then he reappeared, heading back towards the door. This was the moment. I hesitated again. Stage fright seizing me, and he walked right past and was gone. I exhaled sharply. Regret settled in my chest. Another missed opportunity to show God's glory. Why do we care so much what other people think? A few minutes later, John wheeled me into a small room off the lobby. You're in good hands now, he said with a nod, before leaving with the stretcher. I guess he had to wait with me until I was assigned a room. What a nice guy. A nurse entered the room and checked my blood pressure, followed by a porter. Wordless and gentle, he pushed the bed back into the hallway, turning away from the lobby. This time, he pushed me down a quiet corridor, maneuvering the bed with a calm ease that felt both soothing and adventurous. We reached a narrow junction where a nurse was blocking the hallway with a large machine. I braced myself for an impatient exchange between them. Hey, Claude, she said warmly. Morning, Lisa, he replied. She slid the machine aside with a smile, and we glided past without any delay. The hospital felt peaceful and oddly empty. Is it always this calm? I asked the porter. Only on Sunday mornings, he said, smiling. They'll pick up again by evening. He pushed the bed into the ultrasound room where a technician greeted us in a friendly, easygoing tone. Let me grab a chair for your husband, he said, before disappearing into the hall. He returned with his seat, setting it beside the bed so Mauro could sit with the baby. He then wheeled my bed into position for the scan. When it was done, he wheeled me back himself. No point making you wait for transport, he said with a grin. Within a few minutes, we were back in our assigned room. Then a doctor walked in, introduced himself, and said, I'm going to insert something to help your uterus contract and stop the bleeding. I nodded. Then he added, expect strong cramps as he administered the suppository. I am also going to leave you a prescription for iron supplements. He turned to go. Doctor? Mauro raised his right hand towards the doctor. He hesitated, then exhaled heavily, as if trying to phrase his question. What should we do during labor if my wife says she needs to pee but can't? Without skipping a beat, the doctor answered, you'd have to use a catheter. If her bladder is full, there's no room for the baby to descend. Mauro turned to look at me, stunned. I raised my eyebrows and cocked my head to say that's what I had been trying to tell you. We thanked the doctor in unison, who nodded and then left. I watched Mauro turn things over in his head, trying to make sense of the doctor's lack of hesitation and the midwife's lack of knowledge. Part of him still hesitated to believe it. The nurse returned, hooked up 2 bags of antibiotics to my IV and said this will take an hour. Then Mauro's parents arrived. I didn't even know Mauro had called them. His mother walked straight to the bed and hugged me. What happened? She asked, more excited than worried. I gave her the short version. She listened, nodding, then reached into her bag and pulled out containers of lasagna. Of course, she thought to bring lasagna. She never leaves home without it. My stomach growled and gratitude surged up to drown out the annoyance. Mauro and I cheered her for coming to the rescue, and we ate. The nurse walked by, eyeing our food, smiled and said, I'm jealous. Mauro offered her some. She laughed. I'm good. Then she said something about a prescription, but I couldn't hear her. Pardon? Her lips moved, but I still couldn't make out the words. It was like she was speaking underwater. I squinted, trying to focus, then I closed my eyes. God didn't want me to hear this part. My senses felt so attuned to seeing beyond appearances. I let my head sink into the pillow to let it all go, for now. She stood at the end of the hospital bed, her voice dropping to a conspirational whisper. Oh my God. When they're French words, I have a hard time pronouncing them in English. To a conspirational whisper. You know, she began, I don't like the name Evelyn. My body stiffened. She pressed on, her tone turning sharp. You should use the middle name, Mira Ann, instead, or really any other name. I blinked. What? Evelyn's an old woman's name, she said, her face squinting as if the name had a sour taste. She's going to get teased. Kids are so mean. Mean kids. Her eyes widened, and I could no longer tell if she was speaking to me or slipping into some private dialogue with herself. I sat there, heat creeping up my neck, unsure how to respond. Naming our daughter had been a profound, almost spiritual experience. Evelyn was the name I felt deep in my bones she was meant to have. The name had come to me like a whisper from the universe, a thread pulling me into this new chapter of life. But she wasn't done. Call her Mira Ann Evelyn instead, she insisted. Put that old name in the middle. Use the new modern name first. I forced a smile, my lips tight. It wasn't her place to criticize our choice of name for our daughter. Have you filled out the paperwork yet? She asked. Not yet, I smirked, then added, we were waiting for your final word. Her expression brightened. A strange relief washed over her. Oh, that's good. I was only joking, of course. I had no intention of changing her name. She leaned closer, pressing a finger to her lips. Do you like any other names? Her eyes searched mine, as if I might have a hidden list of options she could approve. How about Sarah? I suggested. Her face lit up, radiating approval. Sarah, yes, that's a much better name than Evelyn. Sarah, the name had crossed my mind as well. It meant princess. When Evelyn first came to me, Sarah had been a contender. And when my mom visited, she pointed out how Evelyn, Mira, Ann incorporated the names of the three strong women present at her birth. 3 women, but not me. The thought had pricked a tiny hole in my joy, but I hadn't voiced it. Yes, the nurse said again, more forcefully this time. Call her Sarah. It's a good name. I felt the air in the room tighten, pressing against my skin. Her voice was commanding, no longer a suggestion, a decree. She leaned in closer, her fingers still wagging. Put Evelyn all the way to the end. That's an old name. You don't want her to be teased in school, do you? Don't worry about offending anyone. It's not about grandmas, you know. Just put that old name all the way back at the end. My pulse quickened. She had misunderstood when I mentioned that Mira Ann was a combination of our mother's names, but naming her Evelyn wasn't about pleasing anyone. It just felt right. She continued, undeterred by my silence. You have to pick the name yourself. Don't worry about the order of the grandma's names either. Just put Evelyn at the end. You really don't want her to be teased. She waved her index finger too close to my face. Her voice was a loud, persistent hum, like a mosquito I couldn't swat away. My breath caught in my throat. The exchange no longer felt friendly. I felt pressure mounting in my chest. I had tried to smile, to nod along, but my patience was unraveling. I smiled, trying to steady my breath and push the knot of emotions down. I need to go to the bathroom, I said, trying to keep my voice casual. Then relief temporarily swept over me as Mauro walked back into the room. But the nurse pounced on him, gripping his arm. You're going to call your daughter Sarah, she said firmly, as if issuing an order. It's decided. Evelyn is an old name. She wagged her finger under his nose. You don't want her to be teased at school, do you? I couldn't take it anymore. I walked out of the room, down the brightly lit corridor, and into the nearest bathroom. I locked the door and pressed my hands against the cool porcelain sink. My reflection staring back, flushed and bewildered. Why was a new name being forced on me? I turned on the tap, letting the cold water run over my fingers. I had considered Sarah. It had even felt right. Why was I so resistant to it? I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. Beneath the confusion, a quiet voice rose from deep within. Her name is Evelyn. I sighed in relief. No one, not even a pushy nurse, was going to take that away. Once discharged, I put on the warm jogging pants Mauro's mom had brought. The dry, soft fabric felt like a hug around my legs, a welcome comfort after the clingy pair I had on earlier. Evelyn was dozing, her tiny fist curled under her chin. I gently placed her on the bed to change her diaper. As I lifted her legs, my breath caught. Red splotches covered her entire bottom. My chest tightened. The rash crept up her thighs, tiny crimson fingerprints staining her delicate skin. I blinked, my pulse quickening. What was this? I fumbled with the fresh diaper, pulling over her rash. I didn't want anyone to see it. My hands shook as I dressed her, my mind racing. Was it an allergic reaction, an infection, something worse? When Mauro walked back into the room, I asked, my voice shaking, did you notice a rash when you last changed her? He looked at me, unbothered. Yeah, I saw something, but it didn't seem like a big deal. I swallowed hard. It looks worse now. His casual shrug was in sharp contrast to the alarm ringing in my chest. I tucked Evelyn against me, feeling reassured by her warmth as we gathered our things to go home. The drive was a blur of streetlights and whispered prayers. Once home, I laid Evelyn on the change table, bracing myself for the worst. I opened her diaper, and my breath rushed out. Her skin was perfect. No redness, no rash, just smooth, soft skin, as if nothing had happened. I sank onto the edge of the chaise in the corner of the room. The antibiotics must have coursed through my milk. The weight of the thought worried me. What else was I passing to her? The room felt smaller, the walls pressing in. I held Evelyn against my chest, her tiny heartbeat, the only rhythm steadying mine. Breathe, I told myself. Stay here. But my mind spun. How could I protect her from dangers I couldn't even see? and that is the reading of chapter 27 of my memoir, Rebirth. Again, please like and share. Please leave comments if you have any thoughts, ideas, insights, suggestions. I would love to hear from you, and I love knowing that you're here listening along. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe so that you know when the next chapter drops. Thank you so much for being here, and I look forward to seeing you in the next chapter. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Thank you.